It's a very exciting and huge day here. The trusses are coming, and on this really narrow property, there's only kind of one way to do it. He's gonna have to park here alongside the house and then reach his boom basically over the house to set the trusses. We don't know if it's gonna be long enough and how it's gonna work, so everyone's a little bit holding their breath, but with a little luck, it'll go smooth. And I think I hear him coming, so let me get out of his way and let's see how this goes. Yikes.
Okay, great news. The truck squeezed back here and the crane does fit. It reaches back to that corner of the house. So now it comes the easy part, which is just doing all the work. The first thing was to set this beam in the back corner, and this is important because later on you're going to see Jace walking back and forth on top of this beam, setting the trusses. And I don't think you can really tell how high up in the air this is. I think the top of that beam might be 20 feet off the ground. And that's kind of the elephant in the room with this whole process. It's that these guys are so far off the ground, climbing around on beams and lumber that's not 100% installed and locked in place. I was honestly getting a little queasy at times watching them. It takes serious mental strength to do the job. This is still framing and carpentry, but this particular part of framing is known as stacking. And stacking means building the roof. You also might hear someone say they're flying trusses. That's another shorthand way of describing this. It's a team effort. Everyone's got a job to do. Even the crane operator, of course, although I didn't film him as much because I don't want to make him nervous. The company who made these trusses is located a couple hours from here in Grants Pass, and they've been involved on this house project since the very, very beginning. The home designer was in touch with them back when he was drawing up the house, working out exactly what these trusses were going to look like and the shapes and designs and such. As you will see, the house has a really complicated roof system. And I looked back through the engineering spec sheets from the truss company, and there are 36 different trusses being installed here that will make up this whole roof system. It's out of control. And every truss has several parts and pieces, and so just imagine how many different opportunities for error there are. And imagine how inconvenient it would be to lift one of these trusses up on here and set it down, only to realize that it didn't fit. I'm guessing there have been some really frustrating phone calls that have taken place between the builder, the home designer, the truss company, probably the concrete guy, all trying to sort out what's going on. And I'll say for the record, nothing like that happened here. These things set on here just perfectly with no drama whatsoever. There's obviously a lot of different kinds of trusses, but generally speaking, the top board, the one that the roof sheeting is attached to, is known as the top cord. And you can also refer to that one as a rafter, but top cord is more correct when it's a truss. And the one across the bottom is the bottom cord. Everything in the middle are called webs. And these are all designed and laid out in a zillion different ways and for lots of different purposes, but generally you're safe to call anything in the center of the truss a web. This truss is known as a girder truss. It's basically just two trusses nailed together, and it kind of makes it more like a beam because this one's going to carry some extra weight. Sometimes they'll even put 3 of them together. That's called a tripler. This would be a doubler, and that's all part of the engineering calculation. This one is going to carry the ends of some other trusses that will make up the main part of the roof.
We got more trusses coming today, and today the challenge is not getting the truck in position, it's more getting the talent in position. So you'll see with the drone, but they got kind of ladders and catwalks and just all kinds of sketchy and typical carpenter footing up there to get these in place. So we'll stay out of their way, but I'll be filming it with the drone. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I thought that the first day went great with no trouble at all, but I was wrong. When they were wrapping up, I was chatting with Jesse down on the ground, and he told me that his shoulder had pretty much completely blown up on him and that he wasn't going to be much help anymore, at least not climbing around and reaching up overhead and such. So they brought in some help. This fellow's worked with him before, and he obviously knows what he's doing. And today's kind of the main event. These trusses over what will be the living room are really big. They're really far off the ground, and there's nothing to break their fall, so this is where it gets a little stressful to watch. Plus, big trusses like this are really wobbly. I mean, they're strong, in the up and down direction, but they do kind of wiggle and squirm all over the place during the install, especially because they're not permanently 100% fastened down yet. That happens later. So in fact, Jace, who's out here in this most treacherous part, he was telling me about another job here in town that he heard about where the stackers were doing this exact same thing, and then all of a sudden their bracing gave out, and all of the trusses tipped over like dominoes, and then half of them fell clear off the building down onto the ground. Nobody got hurt, but he knew the guys who were involved. So needless to say, these trusses are all braced up really strong on one side, and they're working towards the other end of the section here where they put up these temporary strong backs. That's the term for what these boards are doing to keep things sturdy. I didn't film it, but Jesse went around the entire house marking the locations of each of these trusses so they have a place to shoot for when they're setting them down, and then the brackets help match that spacing up at the top of the truss.
Look at those gang plates.
The intersections between the top and bottom cords and all the webs are nailed with a gang nail. And the idea behind a truss is that every member, 2x4s in this case, is only dealing with pressure either in compression or in tension. In other words, they're only dealing with pressures in line with the individual board's strong axis. So I'm going to count on somebody in the comments to describe that more succinctly. I'm sure there's a better way of phrasing it, but that's how I understand it.
Well, the problem is, you got like a 1/4 inch in the bottom and it's tight on top, so we need to try to see if we can get that thing leaned.
Okay.
When Allie and I were first talking about building a house on this property, rather than doing an addition on ours or shopping for a different house that would fit our family better, we knew that building homes with complex roof systems is expensive, and that it's kind of one of the few ways you can just look at a house, you know, like the set of the plans or the rendering or the floor plan online, and have a ballpark idea if it's more expensive to build or less expensive to build. More gables, steeper pitches, all those things add up. And here is where you can really see why. Not just this much extra work for today and, you know, the installation of all these trusses, but everybody before and after, including the framing underneath, holding up and bearing all these different trusses and such. So I knew that, and somehow still just ended up with this complex roof system. So maybe you can navigate that better than I did, but it definitely looks great. And seeing the shape of this roof, even without sheeting or shingles, just, man, I'm so happy. Huge thanks to Mike and Jesse and Jace and Manny and all the guys who did the actual work here. It's easy sometimes to think that just because a tradesman does something a lot and they're a professional, therefore that it's easy for them. But that is not true. This is a big accomplishment and a lot of work, no matter who you are and how many times you do it. I guarantee you, Jesse was thinking and planning and preparing for this behind the scenes for several weeks, probably even longer than that, before the day actually came. And seeing it up here and done is a big relief for him. He's so calm and cool about it that you wouldn't think he was stressed at all, but you have to be. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong, and to make something like this go off smooth without a hitch is quite an accomplishment. So a big salute to all of them. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Believe it or not, that was the first time I've ever been on a job where trusses are flying in. So I've never seen that before with my own eyes, and it was really impressive and cool. Especially this part right here. The video just does not do it any justice. I know it looks like there's this plank here, but I think that was really just for the mental strength more than anything else, because Jace was out on that beam just, I don't know how tall that is, probably 20 feet. If you want to see more of this, my dad set some trusses a few months ago on Ben and Amanda's shop, and he got great footage of it, and that was probably even more sketchy than this, because he's probably just as high off the ground, and he was doing it all by himself. So check that out, and thanks for watching. And this project is taking a big step forward today, so very, very happy about that. Catch you next time.